Okay, we're continuing in Shar Kudin, Perik Hay. Now we're going to explain the idea of the inyan of the ors, what happened and how they came when they came back into the ors of peh, went back into the peh of Adam Kabbalah. How through the or that went out of the peh and went back into the peh, how this created the kelim. And the idea is like this. When the oros went back into the peh, lamala up into the peh, there was a type of light that was left behind, which is the bechina of kelim, which is the lesser aspect of the light that came out of the peh. We said before that the or that comes out of the peh, and many ors could have this bechina, has two different types of light. There's the or ha'avagas, the more thick, the more darker type of light, and there's the higher type of light. So the higher type of light is the one that goes back into the peh, and the lower type of light is going to be left behind and stay outside of the peh. And it's that or that's going to be so fundamental in creating the kelim. Now it's the nature of all oros to leave their imprint, in a place that they were in the beginning. Whenever a tzaddik goes to a place, or whenever there's a ruchnis in a certain place, even when the main aspect of that ruchnis leaves, there's still an imprint of the ruchnis there. So too with the oros. When the oros come out of the peh, the oros are obviously a very high madriga of ruchnis, but when the oros come out of the peh, they come down, and when they go back in, they still leave an imprint from part of the chol, the place that they stayed. So, and therefore, all of the oros that went back into the peh left an imprint back behind. And now we said that it seems that this is the or avagas that's leaving behind, which is the imprint. It's the same thing. Ketzad. Keser left a rishimo in order to be mayor to Chachma. V'chen Chachma l'bina, v'bina l'zampin, v'zampin l'nukva. V'chen la'olam teva ha'elyon l'hayr b'tachta. Each one of the spheres left a rishimo, left a certain aspect of light behind to be mayor to the sphere underneath it. Keser left a rishimo for Chachma, Chachma left for Bina, Bina left a rishimo to be mayor to Zampin, and Zampin left to be mayor to Nukva. Sometimes we take Zampin and we interchange it with the six spheres. Obviously, we've spoken about this a few times. So when we say Zampin, we just mean each one of the six spheres individually. Obviously, within the six spheres of Zampin, Chesed leaves a rishimo for Gvura, and Gvura leaves a rishimo for Tiferes, and so on and so forth. But here it seems to be like a more Bekitzer way of saying it. And this reason, the reason for this is that every single time we have an Or Elyon, it always has a teva to be mashpia to Or Tachta. And the Or Elyon, the upper light, has a desire to be mayor to the Or Tachton, like a father has to a son. Like a father has a desire to give over to his son, so too the Or Elyon has a desire to give over and be mashpia to the Or Tachton. And therefore, the Or Elyon will leave a rishimo in order to be mayor to the Tachton. Meaning the upper light will always leave an imprint in order that the lower light should always continue to be receiving from the upper light. So by Keser and Chachma, Keser will always leave a rishimo in order to continue to give over to Chachma. Because it has a desire to give over to Chachma, like a father has a desire to give over to teach his son, or to give over to his son, or to give things to his son. And according to this, it comes out that all of them leave a rishimo except for a malchus. All of because Malchus has no Malchus has no reason to leave a proper Rishima, since it has no sphere that it needs to be made to it. I'm sorry, I think we're going to explain here that the Rishima and the Or Avlagas are two separate things. I think we're going to say that later. Not like I said before. I think we're going to see it as two separate things. But in any case, we'll see what's going to be with Orishima and what is the Or Avlagas. In any case, we're not saying that Orishima is the koch that's being left behind in order to be mashpia to the lower levels. And therefore, the Malchus does not leave Orishima below at all. Doesn't leave Rishima in the place of Malchus. Hagam Tzasi Kasuf Aval B'Yesod Kishu Omra Sham Misheres Rishima V'Zoski B'Chinas HaTorah Misheres Sham Tami B'Yesod. We're going to see later. There's a Hagah here that says that the Yesod, the Malchus does leave Rishima for the when it reaches Yesod, it leaves Rishima in Yesod, and that's like the terrace of the Yesod, the crown on top of the Yesod. And that's what there is a type of Rishima that's left by Malchus. Now let's start explaining what's going to happen and how everything works. We're starting from the Yesod. We're going to start explaining from the Yesod, since it's the lowest one that starts leaving Rishima. The number. Ki hine be'is al yasod shel Yesod el makom ha'chod ad lamah. Now, when the Yesod goes up to the Hod, when it goes above to the Hod, maniach Rishima b'mkomo should be Yesod l'tzarach Malchus. It leaves a Rishima in the Yesod in order to be meir to Malchus. V'oso haroshem ino mistalk misham l'ol. And that roshem, that imprint that Yesod left to be meir to Malchus, will never leave forever. Even afterwards, when the Malchus itself goes back into the Matziel, and it would seem that there would be no more purpose of having Yesod leave his Rishima to be mayor to Malchus when Malchus isn't there anymore. Malchus isn't even in Ol Ma'akudim anymore. Malchus at one point will get back into the Peh, so why is Yesod leaving Rishima in the place of Yesod if Malchus is back in the Peh? So we're saying here that it still stays. Even the Yesod of the Rishima still stays this whole time, even after Malchus goes back into the Peh. Gam ken osim shar kol spheres chutz min ha-Malchus. And similarly, all the other spheres except for the Malchus do this, because we said Malchus, as mentioned above, did not leave a Rishima at all. V'nei zeh Rishima hu mina or rishon. Now this Rishima is from the type of or, from the type of the first or that came out. Shu yor derech yasher. Shahai yor derech yasher, which came down out of the Peh in a straightforward, extending manner. V'kvayadata ki or haba b'yosher v'rachim v'or derech hazar l'mala v'nukar or choser v'ordin. Now there's a general principle. There are two different types of lights. Just like we saw, there's Igulim and Yosher, and there's all sorts of different, there's Pnimi and there's Makiv. There are all sorts of different types of lights. There's also called Or Yosher and Or Choser. Or Yosher is when the Or is coming out, extending down, and spreading out down. And Or Choser, and that's Or Yosher is Rachman. And Or Choser when the Or is going back up, and then it's called Or Choser, and it's a Bechina of Din. It's a type of Din. It's not bad, it's just more harsh, more judgments. Now this Rishima is part of the aspect of light that's derech yasher, that's extending light that's extending down. And that's also, we see this in the teva of these ors, that the ors just want to be mashpia, that's what they're left for. The Rishima is left like a sefer of a tzaddik, who's left after his passing in order to continue teaching. It's inherently the aspect of his light that's come to be mashpia. Meaning the tzaddik had an aspect, let's just say as a mashal obviously, the tzaddik had an aspect of his light that wanted, of himself that wanted to be mayor and to teach to other people Torah and to show people how to serve Hashem. So he wrote a sefer. Afterwards, when he dies, this desire for him to continue living in this world, for him to teach and to give over to other people, stays in this world. It's a type of Rishima that stays here in this world. And similarly, here by these Ors, they had a type of desire to be mashpia, and some of that type of desire, some of this Oyasha, stayed. And that was the Rishima. Hayupanim lamata. Now, it's known, we understood, that when the spheres of Akudim came down, their face was face down. Because their kavana, their intention, was to be mayor to the lower spheres. Therefore, their face was towards the makabim. But when they go back up, they turn their face up. Now, this is a point. When the Oros came out, each one of the spheres, again, like we said, there are a lot of bechinas in the spheres. We said there's Yosha and Igulim, there's Pnimi and there's Makif, there's O Yosha and there's O Chozer. There's also something called Panim and Achor. There's a way to relate to somebody, or to, like in a martial again, with your face, where you speak to him directly and you face him. And there's a way where you don't want to speak to somebody, you're not so interested, you might be speaking to him, but you're not so interested in speaking to him, so you turn away from him, you look at him, you look away, and you talk to him from looking away from him. So obviously, the greater ha'ara, the greater relationship that you have to the person is if you were to face him. If you were to face away from him, it's less of a connection. So here too, when the spheres are facing something, they're facing, when they turn their face to something, they're being near and they're connecting to that thing, much stronger than when they turn away from that thing. Now, even though in the back there is still a ha'ara, there is still a connection. There is a type of connection that we're going to learn about. That's called, we spoke about, I think also, that's called achar ba'achar, back to back. And this type of connection is just a much lower connection. Face to face is a much higher connection. So here we're saying that since the desire of these spheres is to be meir, is to shine down to the lower bechinas, so their face was down, because that's where they're trying to be meir. They want to be meir to that. They want to be made down. Now, later on, we're going to see. So then, afterwards, when the Oros start coming back into the path, they turn around to face up, and they're no longer facing down. And when their back is facing down, so whatever they're being mayor, whenever they're shining down to the lower spheres, they're only shining from their back, not from the front. Okay. V'hinei, ba'alos ha'keser el ha'matya. Now, when the keser goes back into the matya, in sofik ki l'olam ein or ha'matya nefsak afilu rega achas min ha'makabim v'netzalim. So, when the keser goes back into the matya, for sure it can't be that the oros that were outside the peh didn't have a direct connection still with the matya, with Adam Kadmon. The matya is, we're calling it the creator. A simple reason is that the Adam Kadmon did create the Oros of Peh. Now, we're saying that there's a connection between the Oros of Peh that came out of the Peh and the Adam Kadmon itself, the Guf Adam Kadmon. And we're saying that even though this connection may seem to be broken when Keser goes back into Matya, it really isn't. Ki be'is hahi asher Keser haya ola lamala. Now we would think that when the aura of Keser goes back into the peh, it turns away and it stops shining down. Now, since Keser is stopping to shine the aura of the Matya that it receives from the aura of the Adam Kadmon that it receives, and it's not shining it down to Chachma, and Chachma isn't shining it down to Bina, then all the lower auras would start losing their connection to the Matya. Now the Rav is saying that that's impossible, that can't be. All the lower spheres always must be attached and connected and receiving from the Matya. However, here it is receiving from the Matya, just from the Achorai, from the back of Keser, which is a lower Bechina, as we're going to explain. But it's not that there's no connection at all. It's just a much lesser connection, since all the lower spheres obviously have to receive through Keser. From the Matzah, they don't receive directly from Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon is mashpia to Keser, and Keser to Chachma, Chachma to Bina. But now, since Keser isn't properly being mashpia, isn't mashpia fully down to the lower spheres, Keser does not give such a full ha'ara to the lower spheres. It gives a much weaker one. Since the face is faced up to Adam Kadmon, but the back is facing down to the Netzon, to the to lower spheres. V'imkein, also ha'or haba el spheres hu ba derech achor ha'keser v'udin kanizda. Now all the aura that comes from the Matzil down through the Keser to the lower spheres is now coming through the back, and the back we said is Bechinas Din, it's harshness. So therefore it's a much, much lower Bechina than the upper spheres. And this, in a similar way, also with all the rest of the spheres, that when they were going back up and they turned to face into the Matzil, so their back was facing down, and then when the Matzil was mashpia or into these upper spheres, the upper spheres would only be mashpia down to lower spheres through the back. Let's say, just take for example, Gevura. When Gevura was started to face up, started to turn up to take one step up closer to the Matzil, its back was facing down. So it was only mashpia to Tiferes from its back. It wasn't mashpia from its front, from its face. And since it was mashpia from its back is Bechinas Din, and all the ha'ara, the oil that comes from the back, is Bechina of Din. And therefore it's a much different type of oil that Tiferes is getting at this point when Gevura is facing up to go take a step up on the sphere above it. Because Chachma, for example, at this point, will only be receiving from the Achorayim, from the back of Keser. And Bina is receiving from two Achorayim, meaning from the Achorayim of Keser and from the Achorayim of Chachma. Because we're going to see later on that they both turn back at the same time, and when Keser turns back to go up into the Peh, so too Chachma turns up to go into the Peh. So Bina is going to be receiving from the back of Keser, and the back of Keser is going to be Mashpia to Chachma, and the Chachma is going to be Mashpia to Bina through its back. And therefore Bina is going to receive through two backs, through two Achorayims, and Chachma only receives through one Achoraim. So obviously it's a different din. There's a big difference. V'hu yoser din, and the back of Chachma is even more din than the back of Keser. V'chen al derech zeh ad Malchus, and similarly the same principle applies down to Malchus. Nimsa Sham Malchus mekabeles min tes Achoraim. Comes out that Malchus is receiving from tes Achoraim, from four backs, from the back of all the spheres, from Keser to Yesod. It's receiving from all of them at the same time. When they all turn around, they all turn their faces up to go take a step up. Matzasi Kasuf, Shizesa Targum Tes Pamim Shem Av Ribua Kanola. This isn't exactly on our topic. We found that the Sod Tes Targum is Tes Pamim Av Ribua. Okay. Yesh Hefesh Acher, and there's another difference between each of the spheres. Ki milvad chiluk tosefes ribui umiut b'chinas Achoraim. Another difference is that not only can you count the difference in each spheres of how many Achoraim does he have to receive. We said like Malchus has to receive through Tes, Bina through two, Keser through none, and Chachma through one, and so on and so forth with all the spheres. That's one difference. How many Achoraim does it have to go through? The amount, the quantity. Yesh gam ken shinacha, there's another difference in the quality. Tiferes receives from the back of Gevura, which is very, very difficult Achoraim. They're very strong and harsh Achoraim. However, the sphere above it, like Gevura itself or Chesed, never receives through such difficult Achoraim. Like the Achoraim of Chesed is still Chesed, it's still very high level of Chesed. Achoraim of Gevura is not only Gevura, but it's a very harsh type of Gevura. And according to the Bechina, according to the Inyan, that's how, according to each sphere in and of itself, that's how many different types of Achoraim it's going to have. So we have to look at each Achor and see what nature it has. Like the Achor of Chesed is obviously still a type of Chesed. The Achor of Din is not only Din, but it's a harsh Din, so it's much more of a difference between, even though Chesed and Gevura are one sphere away, the one who has to receive from Achoraim of Chesed is a much better position than the one who has to receive from the Achoraim of Gevura. Each one has to understand where he's getting his acharayim from, and when he's getting his acharayim from certain places, so he would get certain type of harshnesses, certain type of difficulties, where the ones below it, or the ones above it, might not get such difficult madrigas. And it's very difficult to explain each one of the acharayim and exactly how all the combination of acharayim work. There are many details involved in this, and counting how the acharayim and explaining the acharayim and the different types of gvura and chasadim, and different types of harshnesses that could come from the different types of acharayim. And if you make a good cheshbon and you understand each of the spheres and you understand each of the acharayim, then you would be able to make this cheshbon properly.